Hey, luckily, the general who suddenly appeared was too oppressive, and instead forced me to take this last step. Mr. 3's mental and physical state is quite full after being supplemented by the Eternal Wax Museum, and he feels full of strength. Katakuri, who had seen the Eternal Wax Museum in Cake Island before, once asked the question, "Your fruit ability has awakened," and Mr. 3 had taken precautions at that time and gave the answer, "almost awakened." Therefore, seeing Mr. 3's fruit awakening with his own eyes, although it feels unbelievable, for Katakuri, it is barely acceptable. The time moved forward a little bit, when the yellow ape stepped on the cannonball and made his debut. Realizing the dire situation, Mr. 3 did not hesitate at all, and decisively used the Fruit Ability Development Capsule, obtained after successfully recruiting Doflamen. Choosing the option of promotion is naturally the only remaining feature that has not yet reached %. Immediately afterwards, the successful system prompt sounded in the back of my mind. The Fruit Ability Development Capsule is successfully used, and the fruit characteristics are increased by 20%. Currently, the accuracy, strength, and characteristics of the devil fruit have all reached 100%, and your fruit ability has been awakened, and you have obtained the following abilities. Ability: you can assimilate the surrounding things into candles through physical contact. Ability: accuracy reaches the realm of whatever you want, and you can manipulate tiny candle particles in a short distance. Ability: strength surpasses steel and gold, second only to diamonds. Ability: dying, burning and other characteristics have been greatly enhanced, and at the same time added blasting attributes. The power of compressed candles is comparable to the explosion of shells. Special reward for Fruit Ability Awakening. Number of Eternal Wax Museum +1, current capacity for target wax figures, 2, cooling down. Through the information on the panel, Mr. 3 learned about the ability obtained by the fruit after awakening in a very short period of time. The first is to assimilate the surrounding things. Needless to say, Katakuri and Doflamingo, both of the superhuman family, have this ability. The precision strength is also easy to understand, but the blasting attribute added to the feature makes Mr. 3 ecstatic. This means that he does not need to add extra special buggy bomb micro-explosives when he uses moves like Candle Flame Breathing or Candle Demon Flame Ring that require explosive power blessings in the future. While reducing the time to complete the moves, it also greatly increased the error tolerance rate, which played a critical role in improving his overall combat ability. In addition to Fruit Ability Development Capsules, Mr. 3 also received several very good rewards. It's just that the highest combat power of the Navy is right in front of him, and there is no extra time for him to study it carefully. In fact, if it wasn't for the sudden appearance of the yellow ape, he didn't even plan to awaken the fruit ability in a complicated place like the Promotion City. Desert King Kong's Sword. After Mr. 3 used the candle wall to block the laser light of the yellow ape, while the yellow ape was in a daze, Crocodile, who was on the same warship, launched a decisive attack, raising his hand and waving several waves of sharp sand formed by highly condensed yellow sand. Knife. Whoosh whoosh. The terrifying sand knife roared and rushed towards the yellow ape on the top of the mast. Unsurprisingly, it is perfectly circumvented by its use of photon elementalization. Of course, Crocodile, who knows the strength of the general, does not expect this level of sneak attack to work. His fundamental purpose is to get rid of the aura blockade of the yellow ape through active attack, and then use the sandstorm to allow himself and Bon Clay to leave the warship safely and return to the top of the city to join Mr. 3 and the others. Mr. 3, it's really like what Hancock said, you can bring surprises all the time. Crocodile smoked his cigar indifferently, calm on the surface, but shocked inside. The scene of Mr. 3 assimilating and advancing the city floor tiles just now, using bigger and harder candle walls to block the attack of the yellow ape, was naturally noticed by him. Just as Mr. 3 was about to speak, the sky in the distance suddenly became extremely bright, and the dazzling light shone on the entire city and the surrounding sea. Sandstorms, glutinous rice balls, 5-color thread, and unbelievably hard candle walls. Every one is as strong as a monster, it's really scary, the Cross Union. Huang Yuan turned into a beam of dazzling light and appeared high above the sky, and the cloak of justice fluttered slowly. He spoke frightening lines, but his body was already bathed in endless light. He is brewing a very terrifying move. Crocodile and Doflamingo, it's too late to explain. Hurry up and fold your hands, throw me into the air forcefully. Let me block the attack of the yellow ape. Mr. 3 opened the distance, and shouted at the three people not far away with a nervous and anxious expression. Behind him, the ground trembled, and almost the entire roof of the advancing tower was assimilated into candles, forming a supergiant wall of candles nearly 3 meters wide and over 50 meters high. Time was running out, and the sense of oppression from the yellow ape was too strong. Crocodile and Doflamingo didn't think too much. Lay over your knees. In clear contrast to their cooperation, Katakuri took half a step back slightly. He who foresaw the short future noticed something was wrong. Crocodile Eka 2, please, shout out loudly, cheer me on. In the blink of an eye, Mr. 3 has rushed forward. He jumped up and stepped on the palms of Crocodile and Doflamingo with 2 feet, one left and one right. Perhaps influenced by Mr. 3's domineering look and strong combat power, Crocodile and the two still chose to trust and shouted in unison. Ooh! Whoosh! Under their all-out throwing, Mr. 3's figure flew high into the sky like a cannonball, and then slowly fell under the action of inertia, standing steadily on the top of the 50-meter candle giant curtain in a gorgeous posture. A gust of wind that shouldn't appear in a windless zone blows, and the letter 3 hairstyle on Mr. 3's head sways gently. Then, nothing happened. The tense atmosphere suddenly froze. Crocodile and Doflamingo, who also wanted to see what amazing moves Mr. 3 would make with his cooperation, froze in place. The anticipation on his face darkened at a speed visible to the naked eye. Just go to the top of the candle wall, even without our cooperation, he can do it by himself. Crocodile desperately adjusted his breathing, trying to control himself not to rush up and beat Mr. 3 violently. Damn it. Damn Mr. 3. I'm ashamed to yell at you for such a trivial matter. Doflamingo gritted his teeth so hard, looked down at his palm that still had shoe prints, and suddenly felt that his hand was fucking unclean. Trembling with anger, he looked at Crocodile and said word by word, "Hey, Sand Crocodile, after you escape, let Mr. 3 pay for his stupid behavior together. As much as I'm pissed off doing something comparable to a guy like you, I'm fine with that." Crocodile, who always looked down on Doflamingo, agreed with this proposal. Standing on the high wall of candles, Mr. 3 never thought of his skinning on a whim, and accidentally brought together Crocodile and Doflamingo's first sandline snack cooperation. At this time, all his attention was on the yellow ape who had fully charged on the opposite side. Bachi Chongu Yu. As the sound of the yellow ape fell, countless dazzling light bombs struck, densely covering the entire sky. In response, Mr. 3 used the first new move after the awakening of the fruit ability. Whoosh whoosh. On the smooth and flat candle screen, dark gray candle creations are continuously condensed. Candle long sword, candle battle axe, candle trident, candle harpoon, candle arrow. All the candle weapons seem to have self-awareness. After locking on to the overwhelming light bullets in unison, they shoot out at a domineering speed. The endless candle creation poured out like the treasure of an emperor, annihilating all enemies within range. This new move, its name is Candle Demon King's Treasure. Boom boom boom. The candle weapon with super hardness and blasting properties whizzed out, and with an extremely domineering attitude, it clashed with the dense flashing light bombs. In an instant, the entire sky above the city was filled with scorching flames and yellow explosions. A deafening shock wave swept across the world, and even the many prisoners and monsters hiding on the upper floor of the promotion city could deeply feel this soul-shaking confrontation. With their vision blocked, they don't know what happened above, but it is obvious that the cadres of the Cross Union headed by Mr. 3 are fighting an unimaginable fierce battle with the yellow ape Paluzolino. That is the highest combat power of the Navy headquarters. I thought Buggy the Clown and Mihawk the Hawkeye were the strongest fighters in the Cross Guild. Although the strength of the people on the roof is also terrifying, I didn't expect to be able to compete with the Admiral. At a certain moment just now, I can feel that the entire advancing city floor has become much thinner. Is that also Mr. 3's ability? A prisoner on the 6th floor looked at the dark gray liquid wax continuously dripping from the ceiling. His vicious eyes were full of fear. His perception is far superior to that of everyone present, so he knows that Mr. 3 is the only one colliding with the yellow ape's breath at this moment. Fighting against the Admiral with one person's power, regardless of the follow-up results, this level of combat power is enough to be the second in command even if it is placed in the old Four Emperors Regiment. And this Mr. 3 actually has the Chief of Staff in the Cross Union, who represents the identity of the first wise general of the pirates. Joining the Cross Guild with such a deep foundation is indeed a very correct choice. No wonder they dare to attack the City of Advancement so blatantly. The prisoner secretly sighed in his heart. In fact, this is also what most of the prisoners who chose to join the Cross Union had in mind at this time. The terrifying shock wave lasted for nearly a minute, and when the movement above gradually subsided, the ceiling of the promotion city turned white at a speed visible to the naked eye, and was quickly assimilated into extremely strong white silk threads. In the next second, Mr. 3, Crocodile and others stepped on the silk thread and stood firmly on the ground under the gaze of everyone. After the awakening of the fruit ability, the candles made by Mr. 3 are assimilated into things have risen to a higher level in terms of strength and power, far exceeding the previous ones. But against Huang Yuan's Bachi Chong Guyu, he hardly had any advantage. Even, in this high intensity and long-term output, his physical strength will inevitably be consumed. But the yellow ape on the opposite side is still in a relaxed state. While pretending to be stunned and exaggerated, he can also slowly say a few words of confession such as, "It's so scary," and, "I almost couldn't bear it." Mr. 3 was unmoved, and resolutely gave up fighting against such a bottomless yellow ape. If Katakuri, Crocodile Ming and the three of them are at their peak, the four of them might join forces to push back the yellow ape, but in the current situation, just forget it. The general blocked the way, and the previously planned evacuation from sea level was basically impossible. So, after thinking about it for a while, Mr. 3 decided to launch Plan B of the city's evacuation operation. There is no time to explain too much. Everyone, follow me now, and we will return to the 6th floor. Mr. 3's words surprised everyone present. Not to mention the bewildered and surprised prisoners and the new transvestites, even Crocodile and Katakuri, who knew about the action plan of the advancement city, frowned slightly involuntarily. Go back to the 6th floor. Isn't that digging a hole for yourself to jump in, and waiting for the yellow ape to come in and harvest? Hey, Mr. 3, what are you bastard thinking about? I finally got out from the 6th floor, and now you want me to go back? Compared with other prisoners who hesitated to speak, Doflamingo's attitude was much tougher and arrogant, and he asked questions directly. What he didn't expect was that Mr. 3's response was even crazier than his. If you believe it, follow along. But if you don't believe it, you can also stay here and wait for the laser beam of the yellow ape to blow up your sunglasses and your head together. What did you say? Veins appeared on Doflamingo's forehead, and he moved his fingers up and down. The surrounding space seemed to be tightly tightened, covered with invisible threads. Jung. The moment the silk thread was formed, the sound of the sharp knife being unsheathed followed. Ayasha covered the black long knife at her waist with one hand, raised her thumb lightly, and pushed the long knife out of the scabbard, exposing a few centimeters of piercing coldness. Although she is currently in a bad state, and although she is most likely not an opponent of Doflamingo, as long as he dares to attack the third brother, she will draw his sword without hesitation. Immediately after Ayasha, the three-shaped hairstyle on the top of Mr. 3's head burst into flames, and dark gray candles surged from his fingertips. Crocodile looked sideways, Katakuri folded his hands on his chest, Bon Clay raised his sexy calf, and the atmosphere in the audience suddenly became extremely tense. A few seconds later, remembering the giant candle curtain tens of meters high just now, the arrogant Doflamingo still removed the surrounding silk threads. Forget it. Now is not the time to fight with you, so I will reluctantly trust you once. The flame above Mr. 3's head was extinguished, and a bright smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then thank you for your trust first, Doflamingo. For a rebellious guy like Doflamingo, he must not wait for the other party's trust and approval by giving enough respect like Crocodile and Hancock. Doing so will only increase Doflamingo's arrogance. Although Doflamingo accepted the recruitment of the Cross Union from the bottom of his heart, it still takes a long way for him to fully integrate into the team. Doflamingo's retreat and Mr. 3's tough attitude dispelled the concerns of the rest of the prisoners. Without further delay, a group of people marched towards the 6th underground floor. Boom. As soon as they left and pushed outside the city, a terrifying laser light burst out at the entrance. The solid and heavy walls were blown to pieces, and the yellow ape wearing the general's cloak tilted his head and walked slowly from the billowing smoke. General. It's the General Huang Yuan who is here. The city has been saved. The fear disappeared from the faces of the trembling jailers who were hiding in the corner, and they stood still and cheered. Where are those fellows from the Cross Union going? Huang Yuan asked unhurriedly. After confirming that Mr. 3 and the others were still advancing the city, the yellow monkey resumed its previous lazy and casual attitude. After all, from now on, they have no escape. It takes a little time to defeat them all, so naturally there is no need to be so anxious. This is his character, and it is his absolute confidence in his own strength. General Pelusalino, from what they said, it seems that they are going back to the 6th floor. The jailer who recognized the yellow ape replied respectfully. The 6th floor? Although it's impossible to think about it, I still hope that they are here, and consciously go to the prison to lock themselves up. Huang Yuan waved his hand at the jailer to express his gratitude, and then slowly put both parties into his trouser pockets. In this way, I can easily get today's salary. Under the surprised and fearful gazes of many jailers, the tall and oppressive figure gradually moved away and disappeared at the entrance of the passage leading to the 2nd floor. The familiar old place, the 6th basement floor of the advancing city, Infinite Hell. On the way here, Mr. 3 succinctly explained the Plan B that he had prepared in advance to advance the city evacuation operation. What? Many transgressors headed by Bon Clay reacted quite violently. Their eyeballs popped out of their sockets, their jaws fell directly to the ground, their exposed tongues frantically swayed, and their overall expressions were quite exaggerated. Obviously frightened. Hee, what a crazy idea. Crocatter's eyes were lowered, and he silently spit out a smoke ring. Although it's crazy, it's a better choice than having a head-on confrontation with the yellow ape. Katakuri crossed his arms and leaned against the wall of the 6th-floor prison, unable to see what kind of emotion was hidden under that handsome expressionless side face. Interesting, really interesting. Doflamingo stood where he was, raised his head and laughed loudly. Then let's compare and see, which one of us has a harder life. The expressions of the prisoners on the 5th and 6th floors are different, some are terrified, some are fearless, and most of them are the same as Doflamingo. Crazy. Even these vicious big pirates have this kind of attitude. It is conceivable how terrifying the plan B proposed by Mr. 3 is. Then Crocodile, I'll leave it to you to erode and destroy the 6th outer wall. Mr. 3 standing in front turned his head and said to Crocodile. That's right, his strategy is very simple and rude, that is to destroy the 6th wall of the city and evacuate directly from the bottom of the sea. Compared with jumping from sea level and responding by Jinbei, the potential risks of this approach are obviously greater. The moment the wall is destroyed, the seawater filled with terrifying pressure outside will pour back with an irresistible force, submerging everything here. And on their side, there are either weak transvestites, or most of them are devil fruit-capable users. Faced with such a level of seawater intrusion, it is almost powerless to resist, and will lose the ability to move as soon as it comes into contact with it, allowing the seawater to wash away violently, and can only wait for the search and rescue of Jinbei alone. If you were unlucky, you will also encounter the ensuing ferocious sea beasts and Neptune attacks lurking in the depths of the seabed, etc., full of various uncertain factors. This is the risk that Plan B needs to take. Of course, this kind of risk is actually not a big trouble for Mr. 3, who has awakened the fruit ability and has super high precision and strength candles. Now he has a foolproof way to deal with it. Crocodile walked over slowly, and gently pressed his palm on the load-bearing outer wall of the 6th floor. If there is no objection, then I will do it. The voice fell, and there was no movement behind him, but scattered curses came from the prison not far away. Damn the cross union. It is agreed that I will not do anything to the old man who does not join. Now what the hell do you mean? I just want to eat and drink quietly in this prison, you bastards, don't mess around. When the seawater pours in from outside, it will really kill people. If you want to die, you will die yourself, don't drag me. I'll join you now, at least you fucking uncuff me. To aid the prisoners who did not express their position before, but chose to stay in the cage, after knowing this desperate strategy, they all yelled and expressed their opposition. Unfortunately, the objection was invalid. Arost Samsara. Crocodile's eyes were fixed, and he directly launched a big move. Whoosh whoosh. Although the material used to build the outer wall of the city is quite special and strong, under the erosion of the rustling fruit ability launched by Crocodile with all its strength, it still cracked and dissipated a little bit, turning into yellow sand flying all over the sky. The spreading speed of the yellow sand was quite rapid. After a few seconds, the outer wall of the advancing city, which was nearly 10 meters thick, was completely eroded away. Whoa. The seawater filled with terrifying pressure broke through the yellow sand in an instant, tore a wide crack in the outer wall of the city, and poured in with an irresistible momentum of breaking the embankment. Candle bubbles. Almost at the same time, Mr. 3 maximized the awakened wax fruit's ability, and raised his hand to create closed spherical candle films, which accurately wrapped all the people living in the place. Before they could react, the oncoming torrent of seawater completely submerged them who were trapped in the candle bubbles. The 5th layer of extreme cold hell. According to the information provided by the jailer, Magellan is now on the 6th floor. If the purpose of Mr. 3 and his party is to hold Magellan hostage, things will be a little trickier. The yellow monkey who came here slowly walked, grinding his chin while analyzing the purpose of Mr. 3 and others returning to the 6th floor. Suddenly, his pupils shrank suddenly with a casual expression, revealing an extremely rare look of horror. Next to his ears, there came the sound of rushing water that could not exist in the promotion city. No way, could it be them? Boom! When the yellow ape reacted, the overwhelming seawater had already spurted out from the 6th floor passage. Flash barrier. With quick eyes and quick hands, Huang Yuan appeared on the top of the 5th floor in an instant, emitting a bright and dazzling light. The yellow light intertwined and entwined in the air, forming a barrier of light that could cover the entire 5th floor, forcibly withstood the huge pressure of seawater. Although he managed to avoid the fate of the entire advancing city being completely submerged in this way, his own actions were also restricted and he could not leave easily. What a bunch of crazy guys. The yellow monkey who maintained the flashing barrier sighed heavily. It was placed together. On the other side, advance to the windless sea area outside the city. Jinbei, who was sitting on the submarine with his eyes closed, opened his eyes suddenly. As a whale sharkman, and the strongest whale sharkman of the current era, he sensed an abnormality in the supposedly calm sea current around him. Swimming quickly in the direction where the abnormality came from, Jinbei soon discovered the shocking crack on the outer wall of the city. As early as the departure, for the sake of insurance, Mr. 3 mentioned the so-called Plan B to him a little bit. I didn't expect Mr. 3 to really use this amazing plan. After sighing with emotion in his heart, Jinbei didn't hesitate at all, and rushed into the crack at a faster speed, and came to the interior of the city. Thanks to the timely action of the yellow ape to block the seawater, Mr. 3 and others were not brought to a higher floor by the influx of seawater. Therefore, what appeared in front of Jinbei at this moment were densely packed candle bubbles suspended in the seawater. Although there are no such strange candle creations in the plan that was agreed in advance, you can tell that this is Mr. 3's method without looking at it. Jinbei raised his hand and patted the candle bubble. After judging the firmness of the thing, he grabbed the gradually calming seawater with both hands, and his arms burst out with a strong force that belonged to the Murloc. Murloc karate, the ocean current falls over the shoulder. Boom. Surging currents wrapped candle bubbles, rushed out from the cracks in the outer wall of the city, and flew towards the hovering submarine in the distance. A new world, somewhere in an unknown sea. Submarines emblazoned with the Cross-Union logo sailed under the sparkling waters. Inside the viewing cabin of the submarine, Mr. 3 and others who left the dangerous windless zone where the city of advancement was located, escaped the pursuit of the General Huang Yuan, and successfully returned to the New World, were sitting together at this time, enjoying the afternoon tea for the rest of their lives. As expected of Boss Shiping, entrusting my life to you is indeed the most correct decision. Mr. 3 took a sip of the black tea on the table, and gave Jinping a thumbs up. The heartwarming mellow flavor blooms in the mouth, and a refreshing flow goes down the throat to the internal organs, and the nerves in the whole body can't help but make a comfortable and joyful sound. I have to say, this feeling of winning a big victory is really wonderful. Thanks to everyone's trust, compared with the enemies and risks you face, the effect of this old man is really small. Jinbei's answer was very modest. Jinbei, I heard what Mr. 3 said, you bastard, you took the risk to participate in this operation for me. Bon Clay was so moved that tears came out of his nose, and even the makeup on his face was removed a lot. The kindness between you and the Straw Hat, I will always remember it in my heart, and I will never forget it. If other pirates said such words, the first impression would be full of politeness and hypocrisy. But from the mouth of Bon Clay, who values love and righteousness, it has considerable weight, and even the arrogant and suspicious crocodile will not have any doubts. Ha ha ha, you don't have to be so polite at all. If you didn't save your life 2 years ago, how could Luffy and I be where we are today? Jinbei let out a burst of hearty laughter. This is also true. Straw Hat Boy. Speaking of Luffy, Doflamingo, who sat beside him silently the whole time, gritted his teeth with hatred. If it wasn't for this brat, he would still be the king of the underground world now, and he would still be the person in power behind the scenes who wantonly manipulated Dressrosa. Where would you be held in a dank and dark prison to read newspapers? Where would you miss the World Conference, the defeat of Kaido, and the turmoil in the 8 Kingdoms, which shocked the world? Speaking of which, Jinbei, I never thought that a guy like you would join the Straw Hat Pirates. Crocodile crossed his legs and held the handle of the chair with his arms outstretched, as if he was a mafia boss. These veteran Qiwuhai have been together for a long time, and they know each other's temperament from the bottom up, so they are surprised. This is the old man's choice. After all, Luffy is the man who wants to become the Pirate King. Jinbei's eyes flashed bright and determined. Oh. Crocodile snorted coldly, and did not continue to ask. After all, he himself joined the Clown Buggy Pirates to fulfill his revenge. Just talking about this matter, although Mr. 3 knew it was impossible, he still asked half-jokingly. Our Captain Buggy is also a strong contender for the future One Piece. How about Boss Jinping? Do you want to come to our side? Ha ha ha. Then we will be enemies in the future. Jinbei laughed, expressing his firm position with the same joking answer. There's really no chance. Mr. 3 sighed with regret. Then he raised his gaze and landed on Katakuri, who opened his mouth wide and kept sending delicious donuts in. Everyone present has seen his true face, so in order not to miss the fixed daily afternoon tea time, he didn't have too many taboos. After all, space in a submarine is too limited to enjoy dessert alone. Speaking of which, Katakuri, what do you think? Do you want to come to our side? Anyway, the Buggy Pirates and the Big Mom Pirates are allies now. Mr. 3 Chaukaji said. Although Katakuri is not in the Shicibukai condition of the system mission, his incomparably powerful and knowledgeable arrogance did play a vital role in this operation to advance the city. Possessing 3-color domineering, Strong strength and a clear and calm mind, such a perfect man who cherishes love and justice and cherishes his companions, no matter who he is, he will never refuse. Do you want me to betray my mother? Don't do such meaningless things, or I will kill you, Mr. 3. Katakuri said with cold eyes. I really don't know how he managed to say such cruel words full of murderous intent while puffing out his cheeks and chewing on dessert. But like Jinbei, his attitude is quite obvious. Aha. Ahahaha, that's a pity. Mr. 3 looked away, scratching his hair in embarrassment and laughing. Just at this time, Bon Clay, who had put on the transvestite makeup, raised his head and cast his gaze, and the two looked at each other across the table. Mr. 2, you. Before he could say anything, Mr. 3 sighed lightly, and then said, forget it. Bon Clay, who had a little expectation, became angry at the time, his teeth turned into jagged shapes, and asked, Galdino, what do you mean? Do you look down on the servant who is the queen of the new era Shemale? I didn't look down on you. Mr. 3 shrugged, recalling the news and intelligence information he saw on the wall of the Shemale paradise on the 5.5th floor of the advanced city. He asked meaningfully, don't you already have a goal of action after you get out of prison? To be honest, although Bon Clay's combat effectiveness is a bit stretched, even if it's just because of his charisma, Mr. 3 wants him to join the Cross Union. After all, no matter how you look at it, Bon Clay is much more reliable than parallel importers such as Kabaji and Moki. At this time, Kabaji and Moki, who were going through inhuman trials far away on an island in another dimension, all sneezed in unison. Before they had time to think about which bastard was swearing behind their backs, a terrifying monster shrouded in shadows appeared in front of them at the same time. Hey, did you find out? Bastard, I want you to be deflated again. Bon Clay sighed regretfully. I almost forgot, this guy is covered up by a glorious image of empathy, sinister and black-bellied. Hee, I'm not what I used to be. The corners of Mr. 3's mouth twitched slightly. Seeing that they were about to start talking about the old days, Doflamingo raised his legs and put them on the table, and said impatiently, where are we going next? Back to the headquarters of the Crusades? Don't worry. Let's send Boss Jinbei to the Straw Hat Pirates first. The current Kale Bali is not peaceful. Although there are still variables, the current Doflamingo is indeed a member of the Cross Guild. Therefore, Mr. 3 did not hide anything, and explained a little bit about the follow-up arrangement of this operation to advance the city. After all, successfully rescuing and recruiting Doflamingo was only the first half of the whole plan. Whether this operation can achieve a perfect victory in the true sense depends on the Special Operations Team of Buggy, Hancock and Hawkeye. Ha 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 ha, 36 tricks. Mr. 3, I didn't expect you to even plan against a Kainu. It's interesting, but it's so interesting. After listening to it, Doflamingo laughed, and his impatient expression calmed down instantly. In this way, under the guidance of Jinbei taking out Luffy's life card, the submarine slowly dived into the deep sea, heading towards the location of the Straw Hat Pirates. At the same time, the stronghold of the Crusaders' Union, the outer waters of Kale Bali. The small pirate group sailing here seemed to see an extremely terrifying monster. They all pulled up their horsepower and fled in all directions. In front of them, on the distant sea level, a large warship flying the banner of justice slowly approached from far and near with an unparalleled sense of oppression. Standing at the bow is the current admiral of the Navy headquarters, Sakaski. Marshal Sakaski, it's an emergency. The adjutant ran over anxiously. Seeing Marshal Sokolsky turn around, he reported in a flustered tone, the latest news from the headquarters is that the armed fleet of the Cross Union has appeared in the waters around the headquarters. According to the long-distance observation of the Intelligence Department, it is currently determined that Buggy the Clown, Boa Hancock, the Pirate Empress, and Hawkeye Joracle Mihawk have all appeared on the main ship of the fleet. What did you say? Akainu's pupils shrank, and his brows furrowed tightly. Will they attack HQ in the same way as soon as I shoot Kale Bali? Buggy that daredevil bastard. After a brief shock, Akainu straightened his white-peaked cap, his eyes became colder and colder. Even so, for the morale of the entire Navy, it is even more necessary to completely destroy Kale Bali. However, just as he was about to issue an order to continue the attack, another adjutant rushed over with a phone bug. Marshal Sakaski. The news from the Hive Island inspection team confirms that Admiral Blackbeard of the Four Emperors and many captains under his command are dispatched. Judging from the route, their target is most likely the headquarters. At the same time, many pirate groups in the New World are about to move, and they are all gathering towards the headquarters. Hearing such explosive news, even Akainu couldn't keep calm, and angrily scolded. Blackbeard? This guy who is afraid of chaos in the world, also wants to get involved? Yuan, Marshal, are we going to launch an attack on Kale Bali? The adjutant asked worriedly. Akainu let out a deep breath. Looking at the island in front of which he could already see a little outline, his face turned hard. There are other generals guarding the headquarters, and the two old guys from Carp Warring States are also there, plus the powerful new pacifist SSG Seraphim. Will there be any big problems for a while? Moreover, according to Blackbeard's timid and profitless personality, most likely he would not dare to directly attack the headquarters. When the Blackbeard group held the supernova Joeli Bani and wanted to exchange warships, they were frightened by Akainu to evacuate. And so a blue blue blue. Suddenly, the sound of a phone bug ringing came from inside the cloak of justice. It is a special phone bug that directly communicates with Wu Laoxing. Akainu had a bad feeling. After connecting, as expected, the phone bug who turned into a 5-old star immediately cursed. Bastard Sakaski. What are you doing? The Cross Union has already wandered in front of the gate of the headquarters. I don't know how many forces are hidden behind it. Blackbeard is even more active, so hurry back. Akainu lowered his voice and replied indifferently. After I destroy Kale Bali, I will return. The reason why he launched such a high-profile attack on the Cross Guild was to boost morale, and how could he be willing to go back without gaining anything? It's just an uninhabited island. The naval headquarters is the fortress of Mary Joya. If something happens to the Tianlong people in the Holy Land during your delay, can you afford the consequences? Wu Laoxing on the opposite side is aggressive. Hearing this, Akakan said in a low voice, if the Cross Guild really wants to attack the headquarters, it will not allocate excess power to advance the city. This is likely to be a cover-up. His intuition is very keen, but unfortunately, Wu Laoxing doesn't care about it. Even so, the safety of the Holy Land must be given top priority. There will be plenty of opportunities to deal with the mere Cross Union in the future. Return immediately. This is not a suggestion, but an order. The face of Akainu who was so requested was gloomy, and billowing magma burst out of his body uncontrollably. This appearance scared the two adjutants back again and again, not daring to speak. Akainu really wanted to say, just return to the voyage like this, so where will I put my face? But I remembered the sentence that Wu Laoxing said to him when Doflamingo manipulated information and falsely announced his withdrawal from Shicibukai earlier, your what does face count? After that. After a few seconds of silence to calm down, Akainu still sighed heavily, and waved his hand to give the command to return. Although he already had a premonition that the clown buggy's appearance in the waters around the headquarters might be a conspiracy, but there is no way, Wu Laoxing is more concerned about the safety of the Tianlong people in the Holy Land Marie Joya. As a result, the aggressive naval warships began to turn around and return to the Navy headquarters at full speed. At the same time, near the island of Kale Bali, there is the hidden island of the new daughter, Blazing Island. Inside the Palace of 9 Snakes, which had begun to take shape, several figures were sitting at the reception table, drinking afternoon tea leisurely. Ahahaha. I didn't expect to be guessed by that guy 3. Those idiots in the Navy were fooled by the fleet with a few wax figures. Buggy, who was wearing a big red robe, laughed excitedly. Just now, the soldiers of the daughter countries sent news that the warship where the Red Dog was located had given up its intention to attack and return to the Navy headquarters. The development of the whole situation was predicted to such an extent before the action. On the surface, it was to encircle the Navy headquarters to rescue the crisis in Bali, but in fact it was to hide the truth and cut off the possibility that the Red Dog would turn around and support the city. This is what moved you all, Mr. 3's 36 plan. Hawkeye folded his hands, his sharp pupils turned slightly, and landed on the opened bag on the table. Even the world's #1 swordsman, who has been in the world of pirates for many years and has experienced countless storms, can't help being moved at this moment, feeling incredible. Having said that, but such an important action, let us drink tea here? Hancock sat down on the pink python Salome, staring indifferently at the tea and snacks on the table with his beautiful eyes. Recalling that at the previous Operation Advanced City meeting, Mr. 3 had said that their special team had an extremely important role, and Hancock felt a cloud of anger building up in his heart. Can such a crap as drinking afternoon tea be considered important? Granny Z, who was sitting next to her, had a glimmer of light in her cloudy old eyes. As the former emperor of the Amazon Lily Kingdom, she is far stronger than the relatively simple Hancock, whether it is the analysis of the overall situation or the judgment of the details. Therefore, after clarifying the real purpose of Mr. 3's arrangement, she spoke slowly. Shiji, in fact Mr. 3 is not wrong. You are indeed playing an extremely important role in this operation to advance the city. Hearing this, Hancock frowned slightly, and even Hawkeye cast a rare gaze. As for Buggy's reaction, it was much calmer, and he even took a sip of coffee leisurely. This calm performance surprised Grandma Z, and then she was relieved. As expected of the president of the Cross Union, Buggy, has he already seen the true meaning of Mr. 3's arrangement? What she didn't expect was that Buggy didn't know Mr. 3's real intention at all. The reason why he behaved so calmly was because in Buggy's view, who was greedy for life and afraid of death, as long as he could stay beside Hawkeye and the Empress who felt full of security. That's the most important thing. Several people have their own thoughts, just staring at each other. A few seconds later, Granny Z, who was immersed in thinking, let out a mouthful of old blood. Her old waist missed the defense and suffered a fatal kick. Hancock withdrew his long legs expressionlessly. My concubine hates guys who are half speaking. Cough, sorry. The mother-in-law supported the snake crutches and struggled to get up from the ground. After cursing in her heart that Snake G, a stinky girl, doesn't respect the old and love the young at all, she coughed lightly and revealed the real purpose of Mr. Three's arrangement. It's very simple, you are the ultimate guarantee of this operation. Although Mr. Three's strategy is almost perfect, even he himself cannot ensure that every link develops according to his own wishes. Just like the news we just received about Operation Blackbeard, it exceeded his expectations. Therefore, there may be accidents or even failures in advancing the city's rescue of Doflamingo. At that time, as the president and core members of the Cross Trade Union, you will play a key role in supporting and protecting the overall situation. Speaking of this, Granny Yi showed admiration on her face, and said with emotion from the bottom of her heart. Mr. 3, when he decided to go to Advanced City to rescue Doflamingo, he had already considered the worst possible situation. Even he himself was calculated. New World, Navy Headquarters, Marshal's Office. Damn it. What kind of cross union? What kind of black beard? It really is a cover-up to distract us and let Mr. 3 and others snatch Doflamingo away. Akainu's face was extremely gloomy, with thick magma smoke all over his body, and his whole body was on the verge of rage. When they hurried back to the headquarters with great difficulty, as expected, the Crusaders and Blackbeard's fleet had already turned around and disappeared on the vast sea horizon. The New World pirates who heard the news even dispersed in a rush, slipping away without a trace. At the same time, news of Huang Yuan also came from Jinjin City. Director Hannibal and Deputy Director Magellan were defeated, and the 6th floor of the city was further damaged than ever before, and it was completely destroyed by the influx of seawater. The cadres of the Cross Union headed by Mr. 3 successfully rescued Doflamingo and other vicious big pirates, trampled the face of the Navy headquarters and even the world government, and walked away with an extremely arrogant attitude. At this time, it is completely impossible to send troops to pursue the Cross Union. Not to mention how much force it will take to chase a complete 4 emperors all over the world. Even if the Cross Union does not run away, with their current comprehensive strength, the Navy cannot take it down in a short time. Not to mention that there are still ambitious 4 emperors like Blackbeard waiting for an opportunity in the dark. A little carelessness will cause the entire Navy to fall apart. The only chance was to attack when the Crusaders were scattered 10 minutes ago, destroy Kale Bali, and turn around to pursue Mr. 3 and others who escaped from the city. And such an opportunity, under Wu Laoxing's strong request, no longer exists. It can be said that this incident of advancing the city was a complete failure of the Navy headquarters. He is Red Dog, more like a clown disgraced. After all, he is the admiral of the Navy headquarters who has experienced countless major incidents. After a few minutes of adjustment, Akainu still calmed down from the edge of rage, and took a heavy drag on the big cigarette. After connecting the Advanced City incident in series and completely linking it together, he, with deep and gloomy eyes, realized a rather terrifying thing. The unexpected invasion of Advancing City from the deep sea not only predicted my expedition in advance, but also deployed a pirate fleet around the Navy headquarters. Even the actions of the Blackbeard pirates, and even the tense reactions of the Wu Laoxing were calculated so clearly. Everyone's actions are within their expectations. Who is behind the damned Cross Union is directing the actions. Akainu immediately thought of Buggy the Clown, the president of the Cross Union, but quickly rejected it. There were a few encounters between them when Buggy the Clown was Shicibukai. Aside from the inexplicable special temperament that can attract the strong and the hidden strength, Buggy the Clown who is greedy for life and afraid of death does not seem to be the type who is good at brains. The original Shicibukai, Boa Hancock and Crocodile who publicly announced to join the Cross Union. It's not quite like that. If they are not weak, and they really have such a precise and predictive mind, how can they be willing to submit to others and become a small team leader? Thinking of this, a man with a strange hairstyle appeared involuntarily in front of Akainu's eyes. It was this man who sneaked into the Amazon Lily alone, deflated Lieutenant General Huashan and Kirby, and successfully recruited the arrogant Hancock. It was also he who persuaded Crocodile to surrender through his strong strength and some special techniques. Even with the joining of Hawkeye and Weevil, and the establishment of the Cross Union, he must appear throughout the process. Chief of Staff of the Cross Union, Mr. 3 Galdino. Thinking of the fact that this guy sneaked into the interior disguised as an executioner during the Top War 2 years ago, and rescued Fire Fist Ace by unexpected means, Akainu's thoughts suddenly became clear. What followed was an extremely strong killing intent. I didn't expect such a man to hide so deeply, and he hasn't revealed any flaws in the past 2 years. Even the spies who were previously placed in the clown buggy pirates didn't find out. It wasn't until the world government announced the abolition of the Shicibukai, and when the whole sea ushered in turmoil, it didn't emerge. It seems that we must re-examine the degree of harm of the cross-trade union. If Mr. 3, who has found and boarded the Straw Hat Pirates at this time, knows that he has been targeted by Sakazuki, who has the highest damage in the pirate world, and is listed as a must-kill target, he will probably be shocked and change his style of painting. AA in his plan, but it's not time to confront Admiral Akainu yet. At this time, Mr. 3 was sitting under the parasol on the deck of the Straw Hat Pirates, quietly looking at Luffy and others who were crying with Feng Clay not far away. Ayasha stood behind him as always, alert to the surrounding situation. Sitting with Mr. 3, there are Shi Ping and Zoro, the steady and responsible of the 2 Straw Hats. Of course, aside from knowing the way. As for Doflamingo, Katakuri and others, they continued to stay in the submarine with the prisoners who came out of the city. After all, they have more or less had a feud with the Straw Hats, so it is not suitable to appear in this situation. In such a short period of time, he successfully rescued Bon Clay and even escaped from the General Huang Yuan. You are quite capable, Mr. 3. The corners of Soren's mouth rose, revealing a look of admiration from the bottom of his heart. Although now they have passed the period when they met the general and were about to run away in desperation, but the sense of oppression brought by Chambord Rizoma 2 years ago is still fresh in his memory. Ha ha ha. Didn't I say it before? I will definitely send Jinpei back to you safely. Mr. 3 sat on the beach chair with his legs crossed, with a relaxed and natural expression. There is absolutely no tension and prudence on other people's pirate ships. In the eyes of Sauron, such a posture is naturally a manifestation of his confidence in his own strength. Especially Jinping, who participated in the operation to advance the city. On the way back, he heard the group of enthusiastic ladyboys brag about the fierce battle between Mr. 3 and the others and the General Kizaru. Compared to 2 years ago, your changes are unbelievable. Sauron stared at Mr. 3's pupils and said with emotion. After experiencing that level of confrontation with Mama Kaido in Wano country, his perception of danger has been greatly improved. And Mr. 3, who was sitting next to him with his feet clasped, gave him the feeling that he was like an extremely ferocious monster. In comparison, it's even more shocking that you, who have already become the famous 4 emperors in the New World after going to sea for more than 2 years, Mr. 3 asked rhetorically. Haha, after all, we have experienced countless times of life and death. Zoro smiled heartily, and raised the glass full of beer in his hand. Naturally, Mr. 3 would not refuse, and also raised the wine glass in front of him to touch him. The two drank it down in one gulp, showing satisfied and happy smiles. Although when they were in Alabasta, they had conflicts, and even Mr. 3 almost killed Soren, Usopp and Nami. But after advancing the city to keep an eye on the war incident, and knowing Mr. 3's help to Luffy Ace, Sauron and others no longer hold grudges. They were not the kind of people who would take revenge. While they were clinking glasses, on the other side of the deck, Bon Clay, who had finished talking about the old days, was performing his own face-changing skills. For a while, I turned into a yawning Zoro, and for a while imitated Brook with hollow eyes, saying that today's sunshine is so dazzling, although I don't have eyeballs or other coquettish words. Although he has seen this kind of fruit ability, Luffy and Usopp Chopper are still amused by the trio. Compared with the program on the surface, they are more happy to see their best friend Xiao Feng again. Especially Luffy, when he saw Bon Clay appeared in front of him safe and sound, he raised his head and burst into tears. He owes Bon Clay so much. Oh, by the way, even this super incredible thing, the slave family has not forgotten. Bon Clay held his chin with one hand, and after careful consideration, he patted his cheek lightly, turning into Nami with long orange hair fluttering. There was a meaningful look in the squinted eyes, and his hands pulled down the collar that was pressed on his chest little by little, and he was about to give benefits to the brothers. Oh. Just like 2 years ago, the Doobie Trio still showed shocked expressions. For them, the ability to seamlessly imitate itself is more interesting than the imitated content. As for the rest of the crew, Sanji, who was standing on the second deck, was the first to be unable to hold back. Driven by a large number of jet nosebleeds, he flew into the air in a perfect parabola with red eyes. Brook, who saw this kind of magical ability for the first time, became interested in an instant. He quickly leaned over and asked expectantly, "Well, can you even imitate Fat Times?" "Ooh, super." Frankie followed closely behind, and took off his shirt while jumping forward. He manipulated the two lights in front of his chest to emit high light, shining on Bon Clay, who continued to pull down his collar. Perhaps because of the inexplicable connection between the pervert and the ladyboy, his voice is somewhat similar to that of Feng Clay. Just when the audience's expectations were full and the atmosphere reached its peak, Nami, bathed in flames, appeared behind Bon Clay in an instant. Boom. The fist full of violent aesthetics fell, directly hammering Bon Clay until he spit out blood from the mouth, revealing his original shape, and lay on the ground with his buttocks straight. It's really enough, hurry up and forget about this kind of mess. Nami sighed murderously. Yo ho 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 ho. What's the matter? Miss Nami, even if his behavior is really too much, it won't be too late to do it after I watch the Fat Times, Brooke said rather disappointed. That's right, it's such a fun ability. Luffy's funny trio also followed suit to express their dissatisfaction. Thena a. Four muffled sounds came out, and the four people with big meat buns on their heads squatted in a row very honestly and consciously. Bastard. That's what I look like. Nami raised her fist that was still steaming and angrily said, look, you can make him look like you and see enough. I'm very sorry, I'm really sorry, the four apologized repeatedly. Seeing this, Frankie turned off the light on his chest, and stood up very generously. Ah. Then become me, today I'm wearing a bright red dress. After saying this, not only Nami, but everyone on the ship showed disgusted expressions. Please, on your body now, there is only this fat one left, and anyone who is not blind can see that it is red, okay. On the contrary, Robin, who was sitting in the corner reading a book silently, raised his hand to cover the corner of his mouth and let out a burst of cheerful laughter. Speaking of which, Straw Hat Sauce, I haven't shown you yet. I have developed a new shemale dance in the past 2 years. The atmosphere finally calmed down, and Bon Clay, who had regained his spirit, made another movement. I saw him lifting his hairy, sexy calf, tiptoeing, dancing ballet there like a white swan. Ooh, so handsome. The eyes of the four of Luffy were instantly attracted, and they ran over and hooked Bon Clay's shoulders, followed by dancing lightly, laughing loudly. Seeing that they were having so much fun, Frankie also joined in on a whim, dancing his own perverted dance steps. Shemales and perverts dance with idiots, and the whole picture suddenly becomes, spicy eyes. Seeing this, Nami put her hand on her forehead helplessly, and sighed helplessly. Seeing that Luffy was really happy to see Bon Clay again, she didn't try to stop them again, and let them continue to play like this. For a time, a joyful and funny atmosphere filled every corner of the sunny. Hey, Mr. 3. Why don't you come with me? When I was in Alabasta, I have seen your wonderful dance. Bon Clay, who was shoulder to shoulder with Luffy, Frankie and others, suddenly noticed Mr. 3 sitting under the parasol. Looking at their idiots, Mr. 3 resolutely refused. Forget it, that's really embarrassing. Huh. This is the romance of a shemale, pervert, man. Everyone in the atmosphere group expressed their incomprehension. Looking at it this way, it's really embarrassing. Mr. 3 didn't want to cooperate at all. Just kidding, he is now the chief of staff of the Cross Trade Union. Whoever sees him will call him third brother. How could he do such an idiotic thing? I actually said it twice. The atmosphere group felt very disappointed and cast extremely contemptuous eyes. On the contrary, Ayasha's body standing behind Mr. 3 was trembling slightly because of excitement, deep blue eyes flashed with overflowing anticipation. Before the third brother, he actually danced like that? I really want to see it, I really want to see it. The happy time is always short. After playing around, it is finally time to get serious. Speaking of which, Feng Zhang, what do you think next? Should you continue to follow Crocodile, or look for Little Ivan? Luffy sat cross-legged on the ground, and while eating Neptune-like barbecue, he showed a bright smile to Bon Clay. Why don't you come to my boat? Speaking of this matter, Bon Clay took a deep breath, and replied with firm eyes. Regarding this, I have already made a decision in my heart. In order to repay your life-saving grace, I want to join the Straw Hat Fleet. Hearing this, Luffy continued to eat meat with a calm expression. Oh, it's really a good idea to join the Straw Hat Fleet. After the words fell, he realized that something was wrong, his eyes widened suddenly, and he even sprayed out the barbecue that he had always liked. What? You want to join the big ship group? The moment they heard the news, the rest of the Straw Hats were also taken aback, and they were stunned and speechless. In contrast, Mr. 3 is very calm, taking a sip of the drink made by Sanji with a leisurely expression. This is what he had expected long ago when he advanced to the 5.5 floor shemale paradise in the city. Because, most of the newspapers posted on the wall are information about the various teams of the Straw Hat Fleet that have been active in the New World recently. Although Luffy himself did not recognize the Straw Hat Fleet, nor did he announce it to the outside world, but it is clear that the captains of the various teams of the fleet had no intention of hiding anything. Bartolomeo was so arrogant that he seized the territory of the red-haired Shanks and replaced it with the Straw Hat Boys' pirate flag. Therefore, Bon Clay, who is in the City of Advancement but still has the information from the outside world, naturally knows the existence of the Straw Hat Fleet and keeps an eye on their movements. Hey, this is what the slave family has planned after hearing the news. Bon Clay stretched out his thumb, showing a natural expression. But Feng Zhang, we are friends. Luffy didn't want Bon Clay to be his subordinate at all, even if it was only in name. Because we are friends, I think that when you need me, I can show up in time, Bon Clay said as a matter of course. No. I will never agree. Lu Fei shook his head violently, not even eating the delicious barbecue in his hand. Sure enough, you should come with us now. Pretty straightforward invitation to come on board. However, Bon Clay shook his head lightly. Although he also wants to take risks with the Straw Hats, but now he is not only a person who has been favored by the Straw Hats, but also the queen of the new Shemale Paradise, and it is impossible to abandon those partners who have given up everything to follow him. Bon Clay did not answer Luffy's invitation, but stood up slowly, and after scanning left and right, he landed on the wine glass not far away. However, just when he was about to walk over to get the wine glass, Luffy, who had been detected in advance, took a step ahead and smashed all the wine glasses with a rubber pistol. Feng Zhang, whether you were in Alabasta or when you were advancing into the city, you have always been like this, always like this. The relaxed and happy look on Luffy's face dissipated, replaced by an extremely serious expression. He opened his mouth and shouted loudly, "The one who needs to repay the grace of saving life is obviously me. You bastard." What responded to him was Bon Clay's equally serious eyes. The slaves have said it before, and they will always engrave your kindness in their hearts. This will not change because of what the slaves have done. It's useless, anyway, you can't drink my brother's wine. Luffy turned his head away, pursed his mouth and whistled, playing a rogue. But when he turned around again, even the eyeballs were scared out. I saw that Bon Clay, who had raised his head, had already drank his younger brother's wine, put down his glass silently, his face was full of complacency. Why? Didn't I destroy all the wine glasses? Luffy was stunned. Taking a closer look, the wine glass that Bon Clay put on the ground was obviously made of candles. Because he is not an enemy that needs to be guarded at all times, so he did not use knowledge color. Hey. Sitting under the parasol, Mr. 3 withdrew his arm dripping with candles, and let out a sinister smile of success. He made the candle wine glass, and the wine was poured by Zoro and Jinbei together. In this way, Bon Clay drank the younger brother's wine quite willfully, and led the transgressive younger brothers in the city to become the 8th squadron of the Straw Hat Fleet. Luffy still expressed that he couldn't accept it, squatting on the ground and sulking. Following Jinbei's proposal to hold a banquet, and after everyone in the Straw Hats voted unanimously, this heartless idiot regained his energy. With the fine wine of Binks played by Brook, the small banquet full of cheerful atmosphere came to an end soon. At the same time, Mr. 3 told Ayasha in advance that the Baki Express mercenary organization had successfully arrived in this sea area and sent a brigantine pirate ship to Bon Clay. Of course, there is a fee. There is always separation in the journey, but please don't forget that our friendship will always be as indelible as the memories of that summer. Don't cry, we will definitely meet again someday in the future. Feng Clay took an elegant dance step, jumped onto the two-masted pirate ship under the setting sun, and led a group of new ladyboys to start his own adventure in the new world. On the Sunny, Luffy, Usopp, Chopper, Frankie, and Brook were crying, and their sad faces were full of reluctance. Mr. 3, who witnessed the whole process, showed a very satisfied smile. Gentleness is not as good as Clothon, friendship is not as good as Bon Clay. Leaving aside the real and cruel world of pirates, Xiao Fang's ability to join the Straw Hats in this way is simply the most perfect ending for him as a sea fan. Then, we have to go too, those guys on the submarine should be in a hurry. Mr. 3 stood up slowly, and after waving goodbye to the Straw Hats, he turned around with Ayasha and walked back to the submarine floating on the water. If there is a chance, let's decide the outcome again. We suffered a lot in the little garden, Sauron said with a serious expression and a smile on his mouth. Sure enough, the world's #1 swordsman in the future is still brooding over this incident. Mr. 3 returned the same smile. Then see you at the peak. I hope that by that time, you won't have to swing a knife to cut off your legs again. What happened to the small garden 2 years ago? Sauron, who was blocked by a giant candlestick, wanted to break free by cutting off his legs. You bastard. The corner of Soren's mouth twitched when someone exposed his scar in person, quite upset. However, Mr. 3, who raised his hand to create a candle passage between the Sunny and the submarine, walked back slowly and disappeared into the cabin of the submarine. The two parties parted ways at this point, ending a rare relaxed and happy leisure time. After sending Katakuri back to 10,000 Kingdoms, Mr. 3 and his party set sail in the direction of Blazing Island without much delay. Without the two buffer characters Kaji and Jinbei, Crocodile and Doflamingo, who dislike each other, naturally have some sarcastic bickering. Fortunately, many prisoners on the 5th and 6th floors knew them, and they all came forward to talk about the past, which relieved the embarrassing atmosphere a little bit. After signaling Ayasha to be optimistic about this group of people with his eyes, Mr. 3 sat on the soft sofa with his legs crossed and closed his eyes to rest. On the surface, he closed his eyes and meditated, but in fact, he wanted to use this time to sort out what he had gained from successfully recruiting Doflamingo this time. Under the slight movement of thoughts, the system panel naturally appeared in the depths of my mind. Successfulully recruited the original Shichibukai Doflamingo, the current goal progress is 4 completed. Target reward. Fruit ability development capsule, used, Vegapunk mysterious technology box, 3 color domineering choose 1 to upgrade, teacher to be determined. Target evaluation. S, bold idea, detailed planning, prudent action, reasonable use of 36 strategies such as fishing in troubled waters, besieging way to save Xiao, and attacking the west by attacking the east, step by step, not only won Doflamingo and a group of powerful prisoners, but also solved Bon Clay regret with the Straw Hat group, bonus points, quite amazing. Special props for obtaining S-level evaluation, Wings of Liberty. Wings of Freedom. A pair of wings composed of tens of thousands of white feathers, with the ability to fly for a short time, can be camouflaged by covering the surface with candles. The corresponding rewards have been distributed to the system space. Open the branch goal, Doflamingo's admiration. It has been detected that the progress of 4 mainline objectives has been completed, and the overall strength of the buggy pirates has met the mainline advancement requirements. Do you want to advance the mainline objective, Shicibukai recruitment, and change it to Sea Emperor battle? The change will change the existing reward mechanism. Looking at this system prompt that had already appeared once, Mr. 3 chose a relatively conservative no after careful consideration. Now the old and new Qiwuhai are left, as well as Blackbeard, Moonlight Mariah, Trafalgaro, Bartholomew Akuma, Jinbei and Hawkeye. Although there are not many left except for a few people who are almost impossible to recruit successfully, Mr. 3 still feels that it is safer to be cautious. However, the props for S-level evaluation rewards are a bit interesting. Last time it was a sea bike that could ride on the sea, this time it was a wing of freedom that could fly in the sky. What about next time? It's a pity that the current situation is not suitable for taking out this Wings of Liberty, otherwise Mr. 3 will have to take it out for practice. That is the power of flight. Not long ago, he had the idea of learning moonsteps. After all, the ability to fight in the air is very important, and it is a great skill to use to escape. And now it's just right to save the time and energy of studying and exercising. As for the existence of Wings of Liberty, will the sea bike appear to be tasteless? The answer is definitely not. Leaving aside the exercise increase bonus of the sea bike and the progress of the mysterious black car, it is quite invincible in terms of pretense alone. In One Piece world, there are not many people who can fly, and there are definitely not many people who can fly, but the only one who can drive on the sea is currently only Aokiji. Thinking of this, Mr. 3 set his sights on the system panel again. After the selection is completed, the main goal of recruiting Qiwuhai will continue. The strongest Emperor subsystem, a host, Mr. 3A. Appearance, charm of personality, 82, a physical fitness, A++A. Lucky value, D+S. The clown buggy camp has its own buff, it will disappear when it leaves. Abilities. Waxy fruit, awakened, to be broken through, armed domineering, powerful ++, knowledge colored domineering, powerful, overlord colored domineering, normal plus. Props. Different dimensional practice manual, in progress, former Admiral Chingchi Sea Bicycle, 8% progress in refining black car, Eternal Wax Museum, capacity, 2, cooling down, Wings of Liberty, Vegapunk Gram mysterious technology box. Main line goal. Omitted, target rewards 1 to 4. Completed, rated A, D, S, S. Target reward, fruit ability development capsule, Vegapunk mysterious technology box, and 3 color domineering, choose 1 to upgrade, teacher to be determined. Side target, Hancock's surrender, omitted, sub-line goal, Weevil's righteous family killing, same as above. Branch target, Crocodile's honorific title, ditto. Sub-question, Doflamingo's trust, successfully gain Doflamingo's heartfelt trust and admiration. Target reward, the secret of Tinlongren, 3 color domineering enhancement. At a glance, the first thing Mr. 3 noticed was the words on the back of Devil Fruit Awakening. No breakthrough? Beyond awakening, there is still a breakthrough? I'm afraid some people will forget it, so I write the side missions here, I can't count them. Sub-line goal. Hancock's surrender. Overlord domineering completely surpasses Hancock. Target reward. Physique cheats. Sub-line goal. Weevil's righteous killing of relatives. Let Weevil see the true face of Miss Bacon and carry him away. Target reward. The designated weapon has a weak shock effect. Sub-line target. The honorific title of Crocodile. Make Crocodile shout, third brother, from the bottom of his heart. Target reward. Fruit ability adds iron sand effect. Out of curiosity, Mr. 3 decisively unfolded the related panel of Devil Fruit. Current Devil Fruit. Wax Fruit. The 3 indicators have broken through %, and they have awakened. Breakthrough of Fruit ability boundary. Suppress the fruit demon in the body through strong courage, so as to only have the corresponding ability, without being restricted by the sea and demons. Devil Fruit. After reading the introduction, the expression of Mr. 3 is like this. That's right, pretty serious to the point of being unbelievable. In a sense, the fruit ability of Aokiji can be able to not fear seawater, freeze. The fruit ability of Uncle Kizaru can barely ignore seawater and sea stones, quickness. And Blackbeard has already achieved one. It is unbelievable that a person eats 2 fruits. Butae combining all these together, even more comprehensive and perfect than them, it will appear very bug. It's a pity that when Mr. 3 wanted to know more about the fruit ability breakthrough, there was no specific condition description on the panel. Is it because the current me is far from reaching that level? Mr. 3 quickly thought of the reason. He has just completed the awakening of the Devil Fruit ability, and it is indeed a bit too hasty to break through now. Suppress the demons in the body through strong courage? If we speculate from this direction, it is probably inseparable from the 3-color domineering. So, does Kaido say that domineering is an existence above everything? If you think about it this way, it seems really possible. Mr. 3 thought carefully and was terrified. He, who has not yet reached that level, temporarily put aside these redundant speculations, skipped the basic attributes that have been slightly improved, and turned his attention to the rewards for successful recruitment. Needless to say about fruit capsules and domineering lecture halls, it is worth noting the new gadgets that appeared this time. Vegapunk Mysterious Technology Box. Obtain the relevant technical research of the scientific team MADS headed by Vegapunk. Choose one of the following 5 types. Weapons eat fruit, human body gigantic, human weapon machinery, artificial devil fruit, bloodline factor awakening. Taking out anyone at will has considerable effect and value, especially the human weapon machinery. Although the possibility of recreating SSG in a short time is very small, even the enhanced version of the human weapon Big Bear can play a vital role in middle and low-level battles. It sounds silly, but Mr. 3 didn't show much emotion. It's very simple. The current buggy pirates, and even the entire cross-union, do not have scientific and technological talents. Even if the research report can be directly obtained through the system, for them at this stage, it is actually not much different from a piece of waste paper. However, this can be regarded as a wake-up call for me. Mr. 3's eyes gradually became firm. As a traveler, he naturally knows how terrifying the power of science is. Therefore, it is very necessary to find scientific talents to join the cross-union. Of course, such an important matter cannot be hasty. At least wait for the development of the cross-trade union to stabilize before formulating detailed plans and goals. As for the remaining domineering lecture hall, for the same reason as Wings of Liberty, the current environment is not suitable for use. Mr. 3 also suppressed the excitement of his domineering promotion, put away his many thoughts, and sat on the sofa to take a nap. Don't look at this operation to advance the city. He has a confident appearance from beginning to end, but the pressure buried deep in his heart is beyond imagination. Both physically and mentally. Third brother, you look tired. Ayasha, who was standing beside her, asked in a low voice with concern. She is very sensitive to emotions and the like, and she can see the fatigue on Mr. 3's face at a glance. Yeah, after all, if this action is a little careless, our entire team will be wiped out. We can't slack off. For Ayasha, a completely trustworthy little girl, Mr. 3 didn't hide too much, just sighed softly. Leaving aside the shackles of the buggy pirates, even if he is alone, he needs to become stronger too urgently. What a bad time travel point. There is something that may offend you, can I say it? Ayasha's posture was a little awkward. Didn't I say it a long time ago? You don't have to be so restrained, just say what you want to say. Mr. 3 was quite straightforward. Hearing this, Ayasha let go of her worries, and said slowly, Grandpa Buren Meads once said that a girl's knee pillow can heal all tiredness in the world. Glancing at the third brother, after feeling no displeasure from his emotions, Ayasha took a deep breath and asked cautiously, "If possible, I would like to help you share this tiredness." After the words fell, she shook her hands in panic again, and the speed of her speech suddenly accelerated. "Although the effect is definitely negligible, however, I still hope to help you a little bit, brother. If you offend me, please don't." "Yes." Mr. Three's simple and plain answer directly interrupted Ayasha's panic. Although his face is expressionless at this moment, deep down in his heart, he is already happy. "Just kidding, the legendary knee pillow. How could an old pervert like him miss out on this kind of benefit? He, sit up." The old man's tone was quite calm. "Yes." After a few seconds of astonishment, Ayasha, who came back to her senses, came to the sofa and sat down quite cooperatively. Hidden in the black leather pants of different lengths are fair and flawless legs. With excitement, Mr. Three lay down on his side, adjusted the position of his head and slowly fell on the pillow. Very comfortable and peaceful touch. Unexpectedly, there are no other bad associations that are easy to usher in the banning power of the crab god beast. Even Mr. Three himself was a little unbelievable. The first thing that came to mind was the pure watery thought of, "I really want to sleep." Peace was rare, so Mr. Three simply let go of all his thoughts and closed his eyes slightly. Soon, he fell into a deep sleep on Ayasha's extremely comfortable knee pillow. On the other side, after finishing the sarcasm with Doflamingo, Crocodile, who was sitting in the corner smoking a cigar by himself, looked sideways slightly. After seeing Mr. Three who was sleeping soundly, a strange look flickered in his indifferent eyes. Look. Although he has looked down on Mr. Three, a guy who is greedy for life and afraid of death, since he was in the Baroque studio. But during the recent period of getting along, what Mr. Three has shown. Whether it's a powerful domineering, a meticulous mind, or a terrifying strength that even he has begun to fear, anything is shocking, even incredible. This change is too great. You've become so tired after just entering this high-level confrontation, you really are still far behind, Mr. Three. Even if it was just talking to himself, the arrogant crocodile still ridiculed Mr. Three's weakness. However, the slightly raised corners of his mouth, representing complete approval, clearly revealed his truest thoughts. Good job. Time passed quickly, and when night fell, the submarine with the logo of the Cross Union finally arrived at the base camp, Qiwuhai, without any danger. To the surprise of Mr. Three, who regained his spirit, shortly after they landed on the island, the four emperors Blackbeard took the initiative to get in touch with them through the phone bug. The time is pushed forward a little bit. After the submarine docked, Mingo, who had put on his feather coat again, and the prisoners of the Propulsion City, led by Mr. Three and others, came to the Cross Union headquarters in the center of Qiwuhai Island. Seeing this circus-style building with many colorful flags hanging, Mr. Three expressed a little emotion and gratitude. In his plan, as the price to be paid for this operation to advance the city, Qiwuhai will be attacked by the fleet led by Akainu, and it is very likely that it will be completely destroyed and wiped out. This is the fundamental reason why he asked everyone to evacuate Qiwuhai before taking action. It's just that he didn't expect that Blackbeard would suddenly step in and sail towards the naval headquarters swaggeringly, which alarmed the 5 old stars and forced Akainu to return to the headquarters. Mr. Three got in touch with Buggy through the phone bug when he was on the Straw Hat pirate ship, and learned about the whole incident. According to Blackbeard's behavior style, he will definitely not take great risks to attack the Navy headquarters because of the emergence of the Cross Union, let alone support the Cross Union as rumored in the New World. Mr. Three frowned slightly, and the figure of Blackbeard appeared involuntarily in front of his eyes. As a conspirator who has been lurking in the Whitebeard pirates for many years for a dark fruit, he can be very sure that Blackbeard must have a special purpose for this operation. And, obviously, this purpose has something to do with the Crusades. Things suddenly became complicated. Mr. Three sighed softly. It's definitely not a good thing to be targeted by a sinister mercenary like Blackbeard. Just thinking about it, everyone has already stepped into the spacious and luxurious main meeting room on the 2nd floor of the base camp. Here, Buggy, Hancock, Hawkeye, Granny Z and Miss Bacon have arrived and waited. At this time, Grandma Z and Miss Bacon were arguing, and they seemed quite at odds. After seeing Mr. Three and the others come back, the 2 old ladies restrained themselves a little, and looked away from each other with cold faces. President Buggy, luckily he lived up to his fate and successfully brought Doflamingo and a group of strong men out of the city. With a smile on his face, Mr. Three stepped aside and introduced Doflamingo and others after getting up. Looking at Mr. Three standing in front of him, Buggy's face covered with clown makeup, a flash of astonishment flashed vaguely. Three, this guy, but after going out for a trip, how did the aura emanating from his body become so amazing? Although his strength is very limited, after all, he is a member who came out of the ship of One Piece Roger, and he often came into contact with top powerhouses during his time as Shicibukai. Coupled with the blessing of many years of escape experience, the perception of this dangerous atmosphere is naturally much sharper. Perhaps, it was because the youngest was standing among a bunch of vicious pirates at this time, an illusion formed? Thinking of this, Buggy's frown suddenly relaxed. This makes sense. Baki, who was wearing a big red robe, took a few steps forward, meeting Mr. Three's eyes. In an instant, a special eye wave was generated, and their information exchange began. Buggy. 3. You're still alive in a place like Push City? As a superficial brother, compared with Doflamingo or other prisoners in Advanced City, basic care is still necessary. Although not much. Mr. 3. Hee, what a pity, not only did I not die, but he became even stronger. After the information was transmitted, he stared at Buggy intently. Speaking of which, what surprised me even more is that you are still safe and sound after touching the bone shrinkage poison I applied on the kit. Buggy's eyes widened, he was startled, and quickly raised his hands to fumble around himself. Fortunately, the bones of the body must be there. Seeing the smile that emerged from the corner of Mr. Three's mouth, Buggy, who realized that he had been cheated, suddenly became angry. You fucking Galdino. Fortunately, I am still here, be careful of your safety. Seeing the angry look in this guy's eyes, Mr. 3 nodded in satisfaction, turned around and walked to the conference table to sit down without wasting any more time. Buggy was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but now was not the time to fight, so he had to restrain his unhappiness and let out the crazy laughter that belonged to Buggy the Clown. Ah. As expected of the Chief of Staff, you did a great job. He walked slowly to the city pirates headed by Doflamingo. Thanks to the cover of the big red robe on his body, he looks unusually tall in the torn state, with a strong sense of oppression. I've always wanted to see you, Doflamingo. Hey, Clown Buggy, I heard from Mr. 3, you are really crazy. You actually want to gather as Shicibukai and overthrow the rule of Tinlongren. Doflamingo also laughed wildly. He more or less knew Buggy's background, and the two even had a brief encounter. But unlike Crocodile, Buggy's fruit ability strictly restrained his fruit ability, and the desire to do it was not strong at the time, so the fight between the two sides naturally ended in a dead end. After all, I have been very upset with those guys since a long time ago. Buggy's answer was quite natural. As early as Crocodile's time, he had a deep understanding that overthrowing the rule of the Tinlongren was Mr. 3's rhetoric and main means of recruiting these arrogant guys. Not long ago, he was still worried about how miserable they would die if this kind of lies were exposed. But after experiencing the attack of the Red Dog and realizing the effect of the 36 tactics against the sky, Buggy suddenly became stiff. Anyway, this guy Mr. 3 must have already figured out how to escape after being exposed, he said so firmly in his heart. That's why I said you are a desperate lunatic. Doflamingo slowly put away his smile. Knowing how terrifying the Tinlongren's cards are, his face suddenly became gloomy, and the light reflected from the sunglasses was full of cold-killing intent. Let's say it first, if you shrink back because of fear in the future, don't blame me for killing you all. As the president of the Cross Guild, Buggy was terribly afraid in his heart, but on the surface his eyes were fixed, showing a more ferocious expression and said, if we were afraid, we would not offer a reward to the Navy, let alone invade the city of Advance. As early as in the previous phone bug call, Mr. 3 had roughly talked about Doflamingo's situation. So at this time, Buggy's attitude was quite tough, and he didn't plan to negotiate terms or rights with Doflamingo. His strength is not good, but his acting skills are still remarkable. The same fierce eyes met in the air. Ha, then I will wait and see. After feeling Buggy's attitude, Doflamingo laughed loudly, and then walked to the vacant place on the conference table with a step that he didn't recognize, and sat down opposite Hancock. This kind of behavior obviously represented that he recognized Buggy's status as the president of the Cross Union. At the same time, it also expressed the attitude that it must be on an equal footing with Hancock, Crocodile and others. Such a retreat naturally made Buggy secretly heave a sigh of relief, and turned his gaze to the 5 prisoners in front of him. A fierce and powerful aura rushed towards his face. Although Buggy didn't have any contact with these people, he had heard about them for a long time, and it was not difficult to recognize their identities. After the simple greeting, under the guidance of Buggy, the 5 people who changed into neat clothes took their seats one after Anothera. Although they are also famous pirates in the New World, they are not like many of them who are well versed in the way of pirates. Flamingo is so arrogant. As for the prisoners on the 5th floor headed by Mise Olive, they stood consciously on both sides of the conference table. People who can make a name for themselves in the New World are usually very self-aware. And Ayasha, still playing the role of guard with a knife, stood motionless behind Mr. 3 and was responsible for the malicious detection of the audience. At the same time, he also acts as the third brother's exclusive tea filler. Huh? Where's Weevil? It wasn't until this time that Mr. 3 belatedly noticed that Miss Bacon was missing a huge, burly man like Bai too.